Weezy out of here.
The dash is digi, the schedule busy. My head in a hoodie, my shorty a goodie. My cousins are crazy, my cousins like boogie. Life is amazing, it is what it should be. Been here for 10, but I...
What's going on, guys? Pokeclips here, coach of the Atlanta Aerodactyls, and welcome to my Universal Draft Network Season 1 Draft Analysis. So, the UDN is a new draft league created by Roaring Arcanine and Ollie Gaming, so make sure to check them and all of the other participating coaches out down in the description below. So, let's just go ahead and jump right into things. So, I had the 8th draft pick out of 16, so I just was going ahead and taking a look at Doc, and one of the things that caught my eye was Mega Mawile, and I really don't know how this thing got to me since I had pick 8. This is usually, like, in my opinion, a top 5 pick, but anyways, it somehow came to me, so I immediately grabbed it, and Mega Mawile is a huge wall breaker. I mean, this thing hits so hard with a base 105 attack with the ability Huge Power, which means its attack is doubled. Also gets a great setup in Swords Dance and pretty good priority in Sucker Punch. But yeah, the purpose of this thing is it's just gonna completely break down teams. I mean, it has very few switch-ins and a pretty good typing as well in Steel and Fairy with really good stab that doesn't have a lot of resistances and switch-ins to. And also, this thing is surprisingly physically bulky. Like, this thing has a base 125 defense, which is no joke, and can really take a couple hits. And well, Mega Mawile's biggest weaknesses are fire types and ground types. So going into my next pick, I kind of knew I needed to patch this up, and I really wanted some good momentum to pair into it so I can easily bring in Mega Mawile. So I decided to pick up Rotom Wash from Tier 2. So this pick might have been a little early, but I really didn't know if this was going to come back to me if I had waited on it, so I decided to take it early, especially since I was unsure what Tier 1 I wanted. So yeah, anyways, so Rotom Wash is a water and electric type and has the ability to levitate, which means it's immune to ground, which is one of Mega Mawile's weaknesses. So that's why I really wanted to pick this thing up, and it also resists fire, so it pairs really well with Mega Mawile, and also gets Volt Switch, which creates good momentum, so I can easily bring Mega Mawile and in some matchups just straight up take a kill every time. And so Rotom Wash is really interesting, and in my opinion it can be really versatile because it can be run defensively with like a Will-O-Wisp, Defog, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump set, but also the Choice Specs and Choice Scarf sets are really effective because it hits decently hard, and it's kind of a slept-on mon offensively, and it's just all around just a great pickup and fits really well with Mega Mawile. So for my 3rd pick, I kind of wanted to help build that defensive core. So what I originally wanted was I was going to take another Tier 2 and take Tangrowth, but that actually got sniped about 4 picks before me. So I decided to get a Mugus, and this thing is a really great value pick in Tier 3. So it gets the ability Regenerator, which means it regenerates 1/3 of its health every time it switches out and is brought back in. So, and it's also got really good defensive, it's really good defensively as, it's got really good HP defense and special defense, and it's able to take a lot of hits. And even though it might be pretty predictable on what's going to come, because when it comes, it's almost always going to be defensive and not offensive, and it usually runs between the moves of like Giga Drain, Spore, Sludge Bomb, Stomping Tantrum, Hidden Power, and stuff like that. But this thing does its job so well, and it really helped build that defensive core for my team that I think is really important to team. So anyways, for my next pick, I was looking back and looking at I kind of wanted to round out that water, grass, and fire core, and in Tier 1, I also wanted another rocker as Mega Mawile is currently my only rocker and doesn't really want to run rocks because of how offensive it is. So I was looking in Tier 1 and I saw that Heatran was still available. So I decided to take this now because I didn't know if it'd come back to me again if I waited another round. And this thing is such a good Pokemon. So it's a Fire and Steel type, and the main reason I really wanted it is because it once again just continues to build that amazing defensive core. But Heatran can also be run offensively, and it hits very hard. I mean, this thing can be surprisingly offensive, and it gets good support moves as well, like Stealth Rock, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, and its biggest weakness is definitely that ground type, which I kind of want to make sure I can continue to patch up later, as currently my only resistance / immunity is Rotom Wash. So I want to continue to kind of build that ground weakness later, as you'll see coming up soon. But anyways, back to Heatran. Yeah, this thing's just such a good mon overall, and it fits well with Mega Mawile. Yeah, it does give me a second Steel type, but Heatran's a mon that's just so good that I couldn't pass up on. So going into my 5th pick of the draft, my team was really slow, and I kind of wanted to start building my Psychic, Dark, and Fighting core, and I was looking at Tier 3, and I saw that Torrent Greninja was there, and to me personally, this is a very good value pick, as in a lot of leagues, I find Greninja to be Tier 2, and I took Greninja because I like having a defensive water type and an offensive water type within my team. So Greninja gives me that really offensive water type, and it gets a really nice speed tier. And not to mention, it also gets one of, in my opinion, the best hazard in the game in spikes, which is huge and is one of the best spike setters in the game. So I definitely couldn't pass up on this mon, and this is such a good mon because it hits so hard and it has pretty good utility. And also, it helps continue that U-turn Volt Switch core for Mega Mawile as Greninja gets U-turn. And it hits really hard and gets really good stab in Water and Dark type, and just such a good mon overall. So, for my next pick, I really wanted to continue to get that speed and try and build my speed tiers up. So, I saw Scolipede was still left on the board, so I decided to take Scolipede, and I actually decided to also make this my first Z user, as we get 2 Z users and get 100 points to spend on Z users. So I decided to take Scolipede as for my next pick. So Scolipede is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated mons in Draft League format. So Scolipede only has base 100 attack, but it gets the ability Speed Boost, which raises its speed stat by 1 it increases its speed to +1 after every turn. So this thing can just start setting up on your face, and also gets Sword Stance to boost that only base 100 attack stat, which makes it hit incredibly hard. And in my opinion, it's also one of the best Z users in Draft League format, because not many mons are going to be able to switch into a Scolipede and take a Z move hit afterwards. It's ridiculous, especially after a Sword Stance. It's absolutely crazy. And also, it just continues to build up my speed tiers, and also Scolipede gets spikes and toxic spikes, so that just continues to make my already really good hazard game even better. So yeah, that was my thought process behind taking Scolipede. And after that, I decided I wanted to take Swellow out of Tier 4. So Swellow is a mon that is really slept on, because in Tier 4, it's a base 115 speed, which helps my speed tiers even more, which is really nice, and it hits really hard. And it's also my other Z user, because since I took Scolipede as my Z user, I had to make either Swellow or one of my future Tier 4 picks to be a Z user, so I decided Swellow was better out of the 2 options. So I took Swellow because it's really fast and it hits really hard, especially if you get a Guts Flame Orb set. It just hits ridiculously hard, and I mean, there's not much to say about this mon. It's kind of like a glass cannon. It's not really going to take a hit, but it's going to hit stuff back really hard. And in my opinion, flying type is one of the most spammable types in the format, since there's not a lot of resistances to it, and there's no immunities. So yeah, it's just one of those all-around great mons. So for my next pick, I really wanted to finish out my fairy dragon and steel core, and I was lacking a dragon, and I wanted Latios, but I had gotten sniped early in the draft from it, so I decided to take its twin in Latios, and this is just such a good mod. I mean, it's base 110 speed, pretty bulky, and it hits hard, and it's got really good setup in Calm Mind, and also it's got reliable recovery, and it's just such a good mod overall. So I don't know how Latios had not been drafted yet. In my opinion, it's one of the top dragon types in the format, and gives me another defogger. So I have currently some just phenomenal hazard game, and it just adds on top of that even more. But yeah, Latios is just such a good mon. It gets really good setup, and it also gets this move called Reflect Type, which will copy another team's typing, and that'll really throw off a lot of teams. They just won't expect it at all, and you can just straight up win the game off of it. So for my next pick, I didn't have a ground type yet, and to me, ground types are one of the most important typings in the entire format. So I was looking around, and I saw that Gligar was still around. So this is one of the most annoying mons in the format to kill, in my opinion, because when you run an Inviolite set, it just eats up so many hits. It also gets Stealth Rocks and Defog to add on to my hazard game, and also most people don't know, but it actually does get Sword Stance, so it does get set up and can hit somewhat hard if it's kind of slept on, you know. But yeah, it's just such a good defensive wall, and it can switch into so many different things, and I think it'll be one of a really important member coming down the road. So this leaves me with only 2 more picks, and currently the only typing that I was really looking to pick up was Hariyama. Or fighting, sorry. So I decided to go with, spoilers, Hariyama. So this thing is really bulky and can hit really hard. And in my opinion, it's the best low tier fighting type in the format. And it gets really good priority in Fake Out and Bullet Punch, and it also it gets the ability Guts, it gets the ability Thick Fat. So I mean, it really it's a really versatile mod. Pretty good options for coverage as well, and it may not be the fastest thing, but it hits really hard. So this leads me to my last pick in the draft. So I'll just let you know, I took Mac Mortar here, but I immediately dropped this week 1 for Regice. So let's just go ahead and talk about Regice instead. So Regice is I only had a tier 5 left, and Regice, I didn't have an ice type, so I decided to go with Regice, and it's a really good specially defensive wall, and I think a lot of people don't give Regice enough credit for what it does. Like, it's got a base 200 special defense stat, which is monstrous. It'll eat up almost any special attacking move, so that was my main thought process behind taking Regice, and I also wanted an ice type. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. I want to thank you guys for coming out, and I will see you guys next time.